This is Booked for Drama, where stories burn, hearts break, the tea is always hot and never a part 2. Today we're diving into 5-year reply. Let's go. Chapter 1. I was scrolling through a popular social media channel when I came across a street interview. What would you say to yourself from 5 years ago? In the video, Christian Frost had his arm around his new girlfriend. His voice was calm, laced with affection. I'd tell the Christian from 5 years ago to find Lily Lynn sooner. The girl in his arms blushed, covering her mouth as she agreed. Me too. Online comments exploded with adoration, followers showering them with blessings. No one knew that 5 years ago was the day Christian and I got married. Even he had forgotten. Until a week later, the same channel posted another street interview. In this one, I looked directly into the camera and said, seriously, if I could, I'd tell her, Claire Kingsley, don't marry Christian Frost. You'll regret it. This time, Christian saw it. The day I agreed to the divorce was a perfectly ordinary afternoon. I called Christian's number, but it was Lily who answered. Hello, I'm looking for Christian. He's in the shower. Is there something I can help you with? Her voice was as bright and fearless as ever, tinged with a possessive, almost triumphant, undertone. The old me would have screamed, would have hysterically demanded she get lost, that I needed to speak to Christian. But now, I knew all too well that Lily was the only one who could get him on the phone. I couldn't let her hang up on me like she always did, leaving me to rage like a madwoman. He mentioned a divorce before. I agreed to it, I said calmly, getting straight to the point. There was a second of silence on the other end, then she repeated, disbelieving, you're agreeing to a divorce? Yes. The word had barely left my lips when I heard a rustling sound. Christian must have taken the phone. Soon, his deep, indifferent voice was in my ear. It's me, I know. Hearing his voice, I felt a strange sense of detachment. It had been 6 months since he'd moved out of our villa to be with Lily. We hadn't spoken since. The last thing he'd said to me was, Claire, let's get a divorce. If you don't agree, I'll file for legal separation and then sue. Now, half a year later, I had finally caved. Lily said you want to divorce me? He asked when I didn't speak. He must have been frowning as he said it, his tone laced with a hint of confusion. I couldn't understand where his confusion was coming from. He was the one who had brought it up. But I no longer had the energy to argue with him about who initiated it. I just hummed in agreement. If you have time, let's meet and sign the papers. Then, I hung up. It was the first time I had ever hung up on him since discovering his affair. Before, I was the one bombarding his phone with calls and texts. I'd used the most vicious words to curse him and the most heartbroken sobs to beg him. But every time, Christian would say, annoyed, can you stop acting like a lunatic? Talk to me when you've calmed down. Then he would mercilessly end the call, ignoring my frantic attempts to reach him again. I wanted to be calm, but whenever I thought about our years together ending like this, I couldn't control myself. I wanted to demand answers, to know why he had betrayed me. I wanted to beg him to come back, promising I would forgive him, but all my pleading and waiting had led to nothing. Christian remained unchanged, and I, slowly, became the insecure, unhinged person he accused me of being. A real lunatic. I floated through a long period in a haze, drowning in the agony of our relationship. Until 3 days ago, I stumbled upon a street interview video by a content creator called Time Capsule. The question was, what years ago? You say to yourself from 5. Some said they'd study harder. Others wished they'd spent more time with their families. One person proudly declared that their future self was amazing, having lived up to all their expectations. And then, amidst the stream of answers, I saw him. Christian, with his new girlfriend, Lily. That's how I knew it wasn't scripted. Given Christian's current status, even the most famous creators had to book appointments to see him. This interviewer had truly just caught him on the street, like any other random passerby. At first, Christian seemed annoyed by the interruption. But Lily, beside him, was beaming with excitement. Oh, this looks fun, Christian. Let's do it, please? She begged, shaking his arm playfully. Christian's expression softened into one of resigned indulgence. The interviewer explained the concept and then posed the question. Lily paused to think, and Christian, seeing her struggle, answered for her. If I could, I'd tell the Christian from 5 years ago to find Lily Lynn sooner. He said it with his arm wrapped around her. His voice was cool, but the protective affection he had for her was unmistakable. Lily looked up at him in surprise, then shyly covered her mouth and whispered, me too. Quote, Chapter 2. By the time I saw the video, it already had tens of thousands of likes. The comments were a flood of adoration. OMG, they're so gorgeous. I ship it, my heart. A true love story. There's hope for us all. So sweet. You two have to be happy forever. Wishing you all the best. I stared at the video, stunned. Did Christian really love her that much? Had he forgotten? 5 years ago, we had just gotten married. We were at the peak of our love. We were poor, but we were deliriously happy. And now, here he was, on camera, saying he wished he had met her 5 years earlier. I expected to feel the usual surge of rage, the uncontrollable fury. I expected to grab my phone and unleash a torrent of angry calls and texts. If he didn't answer, I would have smashed everything in the villa to pieces, screaming my frustration into the void. But strangely, this time, I just sat there, perfectly still. The comments that should have stung, that should have provoked me, just scrolled past my eyes like lines of code. Then, something inside my head seemed to loosen and drift away. And I was shocked to find. I felt nothing. Obsession can be born in an instant, and clarity, it turns out, can arrive just as quickly. And that's what led to my phone call. Christian sent me a message. Amidst a sea of red exclamation marks from my blocked messages, his new text stood out in its simple black and white box. Looks like he'd unblocked me, I thought with a self-deprecating smirk. He told me to come to his office on Monday. His lawyer would have the agreement ready. If we both agreed on the terms, we could sign and then just wait for the mandatory cooling-off period to pass. Okay, on Monday, I went to Christian's company as planned. Since I didn't have an appointment, the receptionist had to call upstairs for clearance. Yes, Miss Kingsley is here. After hanging up, she told me to go up to the executive floor, where a secretary would meet me. I thanked her and headed up. The young woman who greeted me was a stranger. I didn't recognize her. But then again, it had been 6 months since I'd last set foot in this place. She was probably a new hire. Miss Kingsley, please wait here. Mr. Frost is in a meeting. She didn't know me either. She called me Miss Kingsley and led me to a waiting area. I used to go straight to Christian's office. His meetings always lasted at least an hour, and I hated waiting. He knew this, so he'd filled his office with books and movies to keep me from getting bored. You can read or watch a movie. If you get tired, you can wait for me in the break room, he told me back then. The last time I was here, all my things had been removed from his office. The person with free access to his private lounge was someone else. Now, to see him, I had to wait in a generic reception area. But I didn't have the energy to fight over such a small thing anymore. So I waited quietly. I had plenty of time. I didn't expect to wait for 2 hours. Still, no one came to get me. Excuse me, is Mr. Frost's meeting over yet? I finally asked the young woman who had shown me in. She fidgeted. Mr. Frost is still in the meeting? I frowned, about to say something, when I heard laughter down the hall. Let's go to that new restaurant for lunch, then, okay. Chapter 3. The voices were painfully familiar. I had just heard them on the phone the night before. There was Lily, clutching a folder, skipping alongside Christian. The young, beautiful girl was a vibrant splash of color, bright and confident. Christian was leaning in, listening to her, a small smile playing on his lips. I don't know what she said, but the smile on his face deepened. Miss, the young secretary tried to stop me as I walked directly towards them, but it was too late. Christian, hearing my voice, they both turned. I clearly saw the flicker of surprise and astonishment on Christian's face. I asked him if his meeting was over. If it was time to discuss our business. I got here at 10. I've been waiting for 2 hours. Who told you I was in a meeting? He asked, his brow furrowed in genuine confusion. I was taken aback. I looked at him, and the puzzlement in his eyes seemed real. We both realized what had happened at the same time. I didn't say anything. Christian's gaze swept across the office, cold and serious. The employees all bowed their heads, not daring to speak. The young woman who had led me to the waiting room shrank back, her head bowed. But just before she did, her eyes darted towards Lily. Of course, in this entire office, the only person who could pull a stunt like this was Lily. I forgot to tell everyone the meeting was cancelled. I didn't do it on purpose. I'm sorry, Mr. Frost, Lily said, biting her lip and looking up at Christian with wide, innocent eyes. He had always been lenient with her. This time was no different. He didn't say a word of reprimand. Come in, he said, looking at me, dismissing the incident. As I walked past Lily, I saw the pride and defiance in her eyes. Have a seat. Inside his office, Christian treated me like a guest. I glanced at the sofa. It was piled with cute, fluffy stuffed animals. The bookshelf that once held my favorite novels was now a snack rack. The door to the private lounge was ajar. Through the crack, I could see a woman's clothes casually thrown on the end of the bed. Christian looked at me, his expression unreadable. I felt a pang of awkwardness and quickly looked away. Where's the agreement? He handed me the divorce papers from his desk. As I reviewed them, his eyes never left my face. We've been together for so many years. I won't be stingy. You can have your pick of the cars and houses. If you have any other demands, you can make them now. Was this supposed to be compensation? The thought flickered through my mind, but it didn't slow me down. The assets Christian was giving me in the agreement were more than I could spend in several lifetimes. He had always been generous. This is fine. I'll just take the villa we're living in now, I said. I signed my name cleanly and handed the papers back to him. Christian seemed to have more to say. I saw his lips part, then close again as I acted. He stared at the papers in my hand, as if he couldn't believe the entire process had taken less than 5 minutes. I stood up. The cooling-off period is a month. I'll contact you then. I stood up. The cooling-off period is a month. I'll contact you then. I turned to leave. Claire, is there something else? Don't you have anything to say to me? Christian's brow was furrowed, his eyes filled with disbelief, his tone a questioning probe. I looked at him, confused. Seeing that he was serious, I thought for a moment and then asked, genuinely, at this point, you don't actually expect me to wish you and Lily a lifetime of happiness and a house full of kids, do you? I may have moved on, but I wasn't that generous. Quote ellipsis. He was speechless. Christian's gaze was like a deep, dark pool, his emotions impossible to read. As I reached for the doorknob, I heard his voice again. Claire, in the end, I'm the one who wronged you. I'll continue to cover your mother's medical expenses. The mention of my mother made me freeze. If there was one person who didn't want Christian and me to divorce, it was her. Christian and I had started out together when we were 17. In the hardest of times, we shared a single box of takeout, and he would always pick out all the meat for me. In the dead of winter, he'd ride a scooter as a delivery driver to save money, not for himself, but to buy me a simple, plain ring. Chapter 4. It's just a plain band for now, he'd said, but one day, I'll get you a bigger, brighter diamond. We once lived in a tiny basement apartment. There was no heating in the winter, so we'd hold each other tight to stay warm. In the summer, it was so hot that he'd take me to sleep in the park. My mother saw all of this. She felt for me, so she sold everything she owned to help Christian start his business. When Christian earned his first big success, he bought a large apartment in the city center with 24-hour climate control. In front of my mother, he swore he would be good to me for the rest of his life. My mother was moved to tears. "You two just have to be good to each other," was all she said. I, too, had been full of hope, believing our lives were finally looking up. But in just a few short years, everything had changed. Christian had an affair. My mother was diagnosed with cancer. The treatment cost hundreds of thousands a year. If it weren't for Christian's support, I would have lost her long ago. But now, you don't have to trouble yourself. Thank you. I ended the meeting with polite detachment and walked out the door. As I walked out of Christian's company building, I heard Lily's voice behind me. "Miss Kingsley." She walked up to me and coquettishly tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Thank you for letting Christian go and giving us your blessing." I saw the bright, triumphant smile on her face. She looked like a victor gloating over her prize. "Don't mention it. I just hope you don't end up like me," I said with a small smile. A little warning from someone who's been there. The smile on Lily's face faltered for a second, but she quickly recovered. "How could I end up like you? You've seen how much Christian loves me." She was referring to something that had happened a long time ago. Christian had taken her to a party with his friends. During the party, one of his friends casually brought up something about Christian and me. One time, the friend had said, Christian came back really late from a business meeting, and Claire had waited for him outside, sleeping on a bench. Some homeless guy tried to molest her. Lily, nestled in Christian's arms, had wrinkled her nose in disgust. "Ew, that's so dirty," she'd said. I don't know if she meant me sleeping on a bench or being accosted by a homeless man. Either way, the room had erupted in laughter. I was standing right outside the door. I had come to catch them in the act, but hearing that, I felt like I had been plunged into an icy hell. I was frozen, burning with shame. What paralyzed me completely was Christian's reaction. He sat on the sofa, his arm loosely around Lily, a faint smile on his face as he listened to the mocking laughter. He looked completely unbothered, as if they were talking about a stranger, not the woman he had once sworn to protect with his life. Later, during a drinking game, Christian had leaned back and let Lily feed him a shot of liquor from her mouth. At her playful command, he had slurred the words, "Claire, dirty." That was probably one of Lily's proudest victories in our little war. She was clearly still pleased with herself, the smile on her face deepening. I looked at her and didn't forget to add, "But have you forgotten what I did that night? If you can't remember, I don't mind helping you relive it." Lily's face changed instantly. I knew she hadn't forgotten. That night, I stormed into the room in a blind rage. I'd ripped her off of Christian and, before anyone could react, slapped her twice, hard. I'd then pinned her down on the coffee table. "What's so funny?" I'd screamed. "Do you know what happened to that homeless man?" I'd smashed a wine bottle, and in the sound of shattering glass, Lily had shrieked in terror. I'd held the jagged edge of the bottle to her cheek, letting her tremble and squirm beneath me. I stabbed him until he couldn't move. Just like this. "Claire, sis, in-law." The room had gone silent. It was Christian who finally stopped me. He'd grabbed me and thrown me aside. Lily, her face pale, had shrunk behind him, whimpering, "Christian, save me." Christian's eyes had blazed with fury. He'd raised his hand to strike me, but then he'd met my raw, hateful gaze, and he'd frozen. "Claire, you don't dare hit me, do you, Christian?" But I dared. In that moment of hesitation, I'd slapped him across the face with all my strength. My hand had trembled uncontrollably afterward. Chapter 2. That was the beginning of the end for us. After that day, Christian asked for a divorce, moved out of our home, and moved in with Lily. Lily was afraid of me. She knew that when I snapped, I was truly unhinged. She shot me a resentful glare. "Let's see how arrogant you are after Christian divorces you." "You don't have to worry about that," I retorted, then turned and walked away. When I got home, I started packing. Even though I was keeping the house, I had no intention of staying. Looking at everything in it now, after years of torturing each other, only made me feel more disgusted. I listed the house for sale as quickly as I could and booked a flight. Christian had given me a lot of money, I might as well spend it. I decided to take a trip, clear my head, and come back when it was time to finalize the divorce. The day before I left, I received a new message. "Miss Kingsley, hello, this is the creator of Time Capsule. Your interview video will be posted on Sunday at 7 p.m. I just want to confirm one last time, are you sure you don't mind?" I wasn't surprised to see the message. You might not believe this, but the day after I saw Christian and Lily's video, I was wandering aimlessly through the streets. And, by some strange twist of fate, I was also stopped for a street interview. The same creator, the same question. It was so ridiculous, I almost laughed. But fate, it seemed, had a strange sense of humor. I didn't refuse the interview. In fact, as I gave my answer, I couldn't help but wonder, if Christian saw my video, how would he feel? "I don't mind. Post it as you wish," I replied. At the same time, I packed my last bag and walked away, free. 11. Christian's perspective. After 6 months of separation, Christian received his first call from Claire. He expected her to start another round of unreasonable harassment and cursing. But to his surprise, she was calm, a stark contrast to her usual hysterics. "Christian, I agree to the divorce," she told him. He frowned instinctively. His first thought was, "What divorce?" Seeing his confusion, Lily, beside him, whispered a reminder. It was only then that Christian remembered what he'd said to Claire when he moved out 6 months ago. Are you sure? Yes. If you have time, let's meet and sign the papers. Claire hung up after she said her piece. The doubt in his heart deepened, but before he could figure it out, Lily wrapped her arms around his neck. Did your wife just say she agrees to a divorce? Is it true? Yes, that's great. Now no one will bother you anymore. Lily was happier than he was, pressing herself against him excitedly. In the past, her youthful passion would have easily ignited a fire in him. But now, Christian couldn't bring himself to feel happy. He had never actually wanted to divorce Claire. He had said it to scare her. Why had she suddenly agreed? Chapter 5. Christian was baffled, but then he had another thought. This had to be another one of Claire's schemes, right? She was like that. She'd say anything to get him to come back. Once, she'd even sent him a message saying her mother was critically ill. He'd ignored it. The boy who cried wolf can't fool the villagers a third time. Christian convinced himself that Claire was lying. But then he remembered he hadn't seen her in 6 months. Since she had called, he might as well use this as an excuse to go see her. He had his lawyer draft the divorce agreement and sent a message to Claire, telling her to come to his office on Monday to sign. There was a small hiccup. When he went to send the message, he realized he had blocked her. Their chat history was stuck in the past, months ago, when Claire had caught him with Lily. He couldn't even remember what she had caught them doing. All he remembered was Claire's explosive reaction, the screaming and shouting. He couldn't stand it, which was why he had moved out. But she hadn't let up, bombarding him with texts and long, rambling messages, demanding to know why. She was like a madwoman. One time, she'd sent another message, but he'd gotten so annoyed that he'd blocked her mid-sentence. After unblocking her, Christian was worried she would start her usual tirade. But this time, all she said was, okay. Strange. Has she really changed? Claire's uncharacteristic calmness on 2 separate occasions was deeply unsettling to Christian. But it also sparked a flicker of something else. He sighed. If only Claire could always be this quiet and composed. He and Claire had been through thick and thin together. They had built everything they had from scratch. Their bond was extraordinary, but Claire was too selfish, too possessive. After they became successful, she became paranoid, refusing to let any other woman near him. Was that even possible? He was a prominent businessman now. Business dinners and social events were unavoidable. At first, he had explicitly rejected all advances. But over time, he realized that everyone was the same. He had only made a mistake that all men make. And he was better than most of them. He had only found one other person. Lily. It was Claire's incessant nagging that had pushed him further and further away, that had finally forced him to bring up divorce. If she had just turned a blind eye, they never would have reached this point. That's what Christian told himself. After all, he and Claire had over a decade of history. They had shared a single box of takeout, and she had lied about not being hungry so he could have more. In the sweltering summer heat of their tiny basement apartment, she had fanned him all night long. She had even secretly sold the ring he'd given her to buy a small electric fan. They had so many sweet, shared memories. Christian couldn't bear to let them go. And he believed that Claire couldn't let them go either. So, he was certain. This whole divorce thing was just another one of her tricks. She would never be able to go through with it. Christian didn't believe it for a second. It wasn't until he saw her on Monday that he realized she was serious. When she had called his name, and he had turned to look at her, his first thought was, it's only been 6 months, how did she get so thin? Her face, which used to have a soft roundness, was now gaunt, her jawline sharp. The hollows of her collarbones made her look frail. Hasn't she been eating? A pang of worry and an involuntary wave of sympathy washed over him. But before he could ask, she was telling him she'd been waiting for him for 2 hours. He hadn't been in a meeting. But he knew who would have told her that. His first instinct wasn't to blame Lily. It was to get a good look at Claire. He hadn't seen her in 6 months. Even though she had been difficult, constantly chipping away at their relationship, Christian realized that he still loved her most. This love was different from what he felt for Lily. His feelings for Lily were based on youthful attraction, on hormones. But for Claire, it was a deep, soul-level love and compassion. We've been together for so many years. I won't be stingy. You can have your pick of the cars and houses. If you have any other demands, you can make them now. As she reviewed the agreement, Christian's gaze was fixed on her. He needed to see her. He offered to meet any other demands she might have, secretly hoping her other demand would be to not get divorced. But she only asked for the house they had lived in. The entire process was over in less than 5 minutes. Impossible. How could she really be divorcing him? Without any other conditions? She must have more to say to him. Christian stared at her, but she left without another word. 14 was it, really over between them? Christian couldn't believe it. He held onto the signed divorce papers, not sending them to his lawyer. That night, Lily made a candlelight dinner to celebrate. He looked at her smiling face and felt nothing but irritation and a cold dread. Christian, when are we getting married? Lily asked, resting her chin on her hands and smiling at him. Before he could answer, she was already lost in daydreams about their wedding. I want to wear the most beautiful dress, and the church has to be filled with flowers. He looked at her sparkling eyes in the candlelight and thought of his wedding with Claire. They were so poor then. Claire had sold the ring, she didn't have a single piece of jewelry. They had spent a few dollars to get their marriage license. That night, they'd bought 2 bottles of beer and sat by the river, singing and drinking. He had thought then that once he had money, he would give Claire a huge, extravagant wedding. But he never had. They had only taken a small set of wedding photos, and he'd only been able to spare half an hour from work to do it. Chapter 6. We'll talk about it later, he said, abruptly cutting her off. Lily's expression froze, her smile fading as she stared at him. Christian felt a suffocating unease. He called his friends to go out for a drink. Christian, why didn't you bring your little wifey out? One of them asked. Christian, why didn't you bring your little wifey out? One of them asked. With Claire still in the picture, they called Lily his little wifey. Christian didn't want to answer. Someone leaned in close, grinning. Christian, look what I found. It's you and your little wifey. You're trending. Through his blurry, drunken vision, Christian saw the phone screen. Him and Lily. Me? I'd tell the Christian from 5 years ago to find Lily Lynn sooner, he heard himself say in the video. What the hell was this? 5 years ago was his wedding day with Claire. They had been so in love. Why would he have wanted to meet Lily? Christian vaguely remembered. It was from a day he'd taken Lily shopping, and they'd been stopped by a street interviewer. He'd just said it casually, but the video had over 100,000 likes. It was the #1 trending topic in the city. If that was the case, Claire would see it. No, he couldn't let her see it. She would be furious. Christian's hands trembled as he reached for the phone. Who posted this? Get them to take it down. Now, his friends were startled by his sudden outburst. The one who had shown him the video fumbled to contact the creator. But when he opened the creator's page, he froze. Christian, he just posted another one. His friend's voice was small and cautious. It's your wife. 16. It was only after I returned that I found out my video had gone viral. The time capsule creator messaged me, saying he never expected it to blow up like this. He thanked me and asked if he could do a follow-up interview. I didn't reply. I opened my phone and saw that a popular gossip account had shared the story. People who betray true love deserve to swallow 1,000 needles. The sky is falling, people. How long is this 30-second library scene going to play out? The account's narrator dramatically recounted the entire saga. Last Sunday at 7 p.m., Time Capsule posted his latest street interview. On a busy street, he'd randomly stopped a passerby. Miss, if you had the chance to talk to yourself from 5 years ago, what would you say? In the video, it was me. I looked directly into the camera, my voice devoid of emotion. If I had the chance, I'd tell myself from 5 years ago, Claire Kingsley, don't marry Christian Frost. You'll regret it. The video had immediately sparked a heated debate online. Christian Frost? Why does that name sound so familiar? I know, right? I feel like I've heard it somewhere. You guys forgot? The couple the creator interviewed last time, I think the guy's name was Christian. Holy crap, it's not the same guy, is it? We've got drama. After a brief moment of confusion, the internet sleuths, with their keen sense for gossip, had dug up the connection between Christian and me. Once it was confirmed that the Christian Frost I mentioned was the same man who had wished he'd met Lily Lynn 5 years earlier, the internet exploded. WTF, it really is the same guy. This is so dramatic. I thought they were a pure love story, turns out it's just a cheating scumbag and his mistress. Met her sooner? Why don't you just go die sooner? Did you even think about your wife when you said that? Chapter 7. My heart breaks for this poor woman. She deserved so much better. The comments section of the original video was now a war zone, filled with vitriol directed at Christian and Lily. As for me, while it wasn't as extreme, my phone was blowing up with messages and calls. Some were from strangers wanting the inside scoop, others were from mutual friends of Christian and me. I ignored them all. The only thing that surprised me was the complete silence from Christian. It was strange. I had just publicly humiliated him, and he hadn't made a single move. I couldn't believe it, until I got a call from the real estate agent. Miss Kingsley, there's a problem with the sale of your house. Could you come back and deal with it? Confused, I booked a flight back. As soon as I got out of the taxi, I saw the agent. He looked at me like I was his savior. Miss Kingsley, you're finally back. It's your husband. He wrote you were selling the house, and he's refusing to let it go. He quickly filled me in. I had to laugh. So that's what Christian had been up to. He was waiting for me here. I'll handle it. I sent the agent away and called Christian. He didn't answer, so I went straight to his office. Unlike last time, the receptionist didn't even ask, just waved me upstairs. The young woman who had greeted me before was now standing resBCT fully by Christian's office door. Mr. Frost is waiting for you inside. I glanced at her, but my gaze was really on Lily, who was now relegated to a desk in the corner. I remembered her previous post, right next to Christian's office. She'd been demoted. Lily saw me, and her eyes burned with hatred. If looks could kill, I'd be covered in holes. I ignored her and pushed the door open. The moment I saw the office, I felt a flicker of disorientation. All traces of Lily were gone. It was as if the room had been reset to its original state. Christian was sitting in the large leather chair behind his desk. Framed by the massive floor-to-ceiling window, his thin figure looked tired and defeated. Lonely with the recent scandal, his company's stock had taken a nosedive. He'd be a fool not to be stressed. But, what did that have to do with me? If I remember correctly, you agreed to give me this house, I said, walking towards him. He looked up, his gaze deep and intense. Claire, what did you mean by regret? His question was so out of left field, it threw me for a loop. But then I realized, he was talking about the video. When the interviewer asked me what I'd say to my past self, my answer was, Claire Kingsley, don't marry Christian Frost. You'll regret it. 5 years ago, when we were getting our marriage license, he had asked me, his eyes red with tears, Claire, marrying me means you'll suffer. Will you regret it? Back then, my answer was, no. Now, Christian was asking me what I meant by regret. You don't understand? I couldn't help but find it funny, and my voice was tinged with cold amusement. 18. The mockery on my face seemed to sting him. Christian's face went white. He stood up and walked towards me, each step seeming to take a monumental effort. But I never regretted it. Claire, I never regretted marrying you. How can you regret it? You used to say you wouldn't. His eyes were red, just like they had been 5 years ago. But this time, I wouldn't be moved. You said it yourself. That was the past. People change, don't they? That was a lesson Christian himself had taught me. Now that the boomerang had come back to hit him, why couldn't he accept it? Christian stared at me, his eyes full of hurt. He seemed to be searching for something in my gaze. When he didn't find it, his eyes flickered away, and he asked, his voice trembling, Claire, you're doing all this because you're still mad, right? You still have feelings for me, that's why you're saying these things. You still love me, right? He asked me twice, his eyes desperately searching my face for a reaction. But I was perfectly calm. In fact, his questions just made me frown. Love? What's that? We were two people who had already signed divorce papers. What love could there be? Oh, I had loved him once. But didn't he personally throw that away? My eyes were full of scorn. I didn't, Claire, I didn't. I love you. The things I said about divorce, those were just angry words. I never wanted to divorce you, Christian argued loudly. He suddenly pulled me into a tight hug, repeating himself over and over. He wanted a response from me. Our hugs used to be so powerful, so connected. But since he got with Lily, I couldn't even remember the last time we had embraced. Christian got no response from me. He let go, only to be met with my cold, indifferent expression. He started to panic. His hands, gripping my shoulders, were trembling and slick with sweat. Claire, you can't divorce me. If you do, you won't get a single penny. And your mother, I won't give the hospital another cent. She'll die. He was threatening me. He tried to sound fierce and cold, but the tremor in his voice betrayed his panic. I looked up, my gaze calm and steady, meeting him. Christian, you don't know, do you? My mother passed away. During our separation, I tried to message him. Before I could even say anything, he had blocked me. Christian, your threats mean nothing to me. If I cared about money, I wouldn't have been with you when you had nothing. But I still felt a deep, bitter hatred. Chapter 8. Christian hadn't just wronged me. He had wronged my mother. The office was dead silent. I watched as Christian's already pale face turned a deathly gray. The emotion in his eyes seemed to freeze. Shock, disbelief, denial, a storm of complex feelings swirled within him. How could, he whispered. You haven't been to see her in 2 years. Of course you wouldn't know, I reminded him. My poor mother. On her deathbed, she was still asking for me. And I had to hold back my tears and lie to her, telling her Christian was busy with work, that he would come see her as soon as he could. Her death wasn't an accident. She had simply run out of time. There was nothing more the doctors could do. I was the one who signed the papers to end her treatment. I held her hand and watched her slip into a sleep from which she would never wake. I handled all her affairs, alone and composed. After it was all over, I happened to see the video of Christian and Lily. The truth is, I had wanted to divorce him for a long time. I didn't want to watch myself become a madwoman trapped in a toxic relationship. My mother's death was the final straw. Oh, Christian, how could you not know? From the day you made your mistake and refused to turn back, the countdown had already begun. He stumbled backward, almost losing his balance. I looked at him and didn't forget to add, if you have any conscience left, just let me go. Being with you now, every second is suffocating. I left Christian's office. The conversation had not been pleasant. The tense atmosphere seemed to have seeped out into the office. When I emerged, everyone held their breath, as if trying to disappear into the floor. The only one who dared to move was Lily. Furious, she followed me, catching up in a few quick strides. Claire. You bitch, are you happy now? What good does it do you to ruin Christian? She demanded, her voice full of resentment and indignation. Her voice was just noise to me. I slapped her across the face. You fool, if you had any skill, you would have gotten him to divorce me sooner. Then he wouldn't have been branded a cheater and a scumbag. I sneered. Lily clutched her cheek. And another thing, I added, watch your tone with me. I'm not divorced from Christian yet. Be careful, or I might just have him demand back every penny he ever spent on you. He wouldn't. In his current state, you want to test that theory? I was determined to push her over the edge. Lily was furious but speechless. She could only glare at me as I walked away. Without Christian's interference, my house sold quickly. Coincidentally, the day the sale closed was the same day our divorce cooling off period ended. After our last conversation, I had thought he might try some other trick to avoid the divorce. But to my surprise, he actually showed up at the civil affairs office. The agent sighed. Miss Kingsley, you're too late. Your ex-husband offered to buy it back for triple the price, whatever. The house wasn't mine anymore. It was their business. I didn't want to get involved. But then, I saw what Christian was fighting for. It was our wedding portrait, the one we'd had taken to make up for not having a real wedding. Christian, Claire, his eyes lit up when he saw me. Look, I bought the house back. And I'll get all our things back, too, he said eagerly, showing me the portrait. But before he could finish, I had my car keys in my hand, and I dragged them across the photo. Screech. I tore my image from the canvas. Chapter 9. Christian's eyes widened in shock, his face turning pale. He looked at me with such pain and sorrow that tears welled up and fell from his eyes without warning. My face was a cold mask. I saw our reflection in the villa's large window. The scene was eerily familiar. Of course it was. Once upon a time, I had been the one begging him to come back. And now, what goes around, comes around. Don't be so delusional. Christian, you're just making me sick. Don't you ever get tired of this? After that day, my life returned to a state of calm. It was lonely, but being free from the past was like a heavy cloud lifting from my mind, revealing a clear, bright sky. Every day felt sunny. A week later, I saw Christian one last time. It was at a bar. After the divorce, he'd been drinking heavily. Our mutual friends had tried to get me to talk to him, but I'd blocked every one of them. Finally, the world was quiet. That chance encounter, Christian was drinking again. Lily suddenly appeared. "Christian," she cried, rushing to support him. "I've been looking for you everywhere. Where have you been?" "I was so scared," she sobbed dramatically. "Don't do this to yourself over that woman. It's not worth it. Christian, let's go home. You still have me. Get lost." Christian shoved her away with surprising force. "She's my wife. I only want her. Do you think I want you, the other woman?" Something in his words must have hit a nerve. Lily froze, her face a mask of disbelief. That was the last time I saw either of them. Later, I heard that Christian had fired Lily. Not only that, he had demanded back every cent he had ever spent on her. Lily, stunned by his ruthlessness, had finally left in a rage. 3 months later, I received a call from the police, asking me to identify a body. They said there had been a murder, suicide in the villa I had sold. The deceased were my ex-husband and Lily. Christian had no parents, no other close relatives. I was the only person in the world with a strong connection to him. Hearing the news, I felt a strange mix of sadness and resignation. But in the end, I handled his affairs. I scattered his ashes into the mountains and the sea, leaving no trace behind. The end. And that's a wrap on today's reading here at Booked for Drama. If you felt anything, rage, swoon, secondhand heartbreak, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow drama lovers. If you have any requests, drop them in the comments. Until next time, keep reading, and keep the drama on the page.